say something about sense. You said sense.
Yeah, sense making. Well, yeah, like, and I don't know if it's totally relevant for our purposes, but like there's I think a really important discussion going on amongst, I don't know if it's fair to call them the intelligentsia, but just people who are really thinking hard about issues facing civilization. And a huge one is sense making. So every time, I'll try to outline it as best I can. Every time there's a big disruption in how information is shared amongst a community or a civilization. So you can think, obviously, the biggest one is, maybe the biggest one ever was when we learned how to write, but maybe, of course, the printing press, right? Once that happened, it shook how civilization communicated. And there was always misinformation. There was always biases coming out and powers trying to control information, all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing new right now about those things, misinformation, disinformation. That's always been part of human reality. But now with the internet, of course, it's another massive disruption in how information is communicated to civilization. So we don't have, nobody has sort of, I guess you could say more so 25 years ago, when CNN reported something, or even CBC in Canada, there was general consensus then that what was being communicated is some form of a consensus reality, where you had different viewpoints discussing a cohesive narrative that people on different sides of the spectrum could generally agree on. Perhaps the detail or the solution of that can be debated, but there's a general agreement on the problem. Now, because of the internet and the disruption of mainstream media, really, that has gone completely out the window. So there is no, it's for me personally, I find it really annoying and difficult to deal with, is you can't get a straight story anymore. Because and going back to our previous discussion about news and the information that you're taking in, it's so skewed from reality. Because also, I think the biggest thing that the sense making intelligentsia, that's not a fair word to use, but I'll use it, it says the business model of social media and news, internet news, is inherently destructive, because it's not about telling the truth, it's about getting people's attention. So this guy Tristan Harris, he was one of the producers of The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched that, but it's fantastic, and anyone watching, you should definitely watch that. He calls it the race to the bottom of the brainstem, and I know you kind of like that type of language too, right? And so all news and social media is doing is triggering, you could say, our threat detection systems. And so we're in this constant cycle, which you described nicely, of hypervigilance. You're just triggering and fear and panic and fear. And so we get stuck in these information bubbles where our news feeds, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Google, whether it's on whatever, are just feeding us the things that the algorithm knows we're going to get sucked into. And there's no coherent truth sense making anymore, right? CNN obviously has a ridiculous bias, and every story it feeds us now is through that bias. Same with Fox News, same with CBC in Canada. Like, there's no, the National Post. It's so easy. When I see a headline now, without even knowing who the news source is, you can guess which, basically, is it like left, is it left leaning, right leaning, whatever. And so that is making us all neurotic and crazy.
Yes.
Yes, we want to take care of our kids. Yes, we want to take care of ourselves. And maybe there's not a clear articulation, but the connection between that crazy making news cycle and what we see on Facebook and all these other places that our attention is drawn into does relate or correlate to, again, what you were mentioning before, is when we're in a state of fear and panic and neuroticism, we project that onto our kids and we can't not. And then, as you said, they are like, oh, I'm supposed to come to you for sanity, but you're crazy too. What am I going to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Totally.
sort of, yeah.
So that's amazing. I mean, what I'm hearing from your interpretation, is
Yeah.
that because of the internet and the access to so many voices, right, so many, I'll call them opinions, I guess,
Yeah.
that before our brain would just hear like from CNN, like it's like the source or the authority, like for example, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we would kind of take it or leave it, I guess. But it was there, it was clear, still not helpful in terms of feeding that brainstem, like you said, but
Yeah.
it would have a new element now, which as you described it, I'm like, wow, that's chaotic, right?
Yeah.
Because you're receiving one from like the big guy, right? The ones that we're always, and then we're receiving 1,000 or 1,000,000, potentially other little tidbits from everywhere that makes you kind of go, wait a minute, right? Wait a minute. And it really creates this, I don't know where to look. And now it's agitation, right? It's not just
Yeah.
fear,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now we're agitated, like we've just been putting it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how are we supposed to settle our system if not only are we fear driven, but now we're also agitated with it? Like this is, yeah, like it's a really unnerving sensation for our body that, and that our brains, minds, body, we've never experienced before. So we don't know what to do. Like we don't know how to comfort and soothe that. Like technically, in the day of lions and all of that, okay, I'm out there, I'm hunting because I need to be. I'm pretty terrified because I need to be vigilant of the tiger. Oh, good, I made it home. I'm in my cave. I know that's safe. I can relax. My system can go to sleep and I'll replenish like I'm supposed to. And I've recovered and I heal. And then the next day, because I have to survive for food, I go out again and hunt, right? So that was the way they knew the rhythm to help the body and the mind, and brain, all of it, relax, so to speak. But now there is no right answer. There is no cave, right? We're always exposed to this stuff. And there's literally no cave. So, we're all having sleep difficulties. We're all having, major insomnia, really, from very, very young ages now. Kids aren't sleeping, right? And it's not because of sleep habits. Like, yeah, that's part of it. But there's a huge level of anxiety and stimulation that's going on that's feeding into all of our little sensitive systems, right? And again, this agitation. So this is how we're going to sleep.
I love that word. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we expect to sleep without a pill, right? Like it's almost unrealistic. Yet, I mean, I'm not a big advocate for the pills like that, like to help us sleep. But on the other hand, I get it, right? Like I get why people do that. So we really need to turn this over and figure out how to bring it back to just one main source that we can, again, take or leave. I'm not saying you have to buy into the source, but there's too many and we don't know what's right or wrong anymore, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and what is our cave going to be? I'm open-ended. I don't have an answer to this. Yeah.
When you said the word agitation, I just was like, yep, that's the word for me. Totally. It's the trigger of what is this stupid, some ridiculous news story. Yeah. And then it's that agitation. Yeah, that's such a good word, I think, because I think a lot of us are we're just like this agitation that's causing, and then we think, oh, I'm just going to control something outside of myself to give me the sense that I'm controlling the agitation. But I would say that I think we do know, I think we do have a, I don't know if it's that the cave, and I know a lot of the stuff that you talked about in your book, but like we can create a cave internally in some sense that we can return to.
We
And
need to.
that's the, we must, yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of people don't have practice doing that or have never been taught how to do
No,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
possible we didn't need it before because it wasn't so, unnerving, because there
Right.
wasn't so much
Yeah. Yeah.
stimulation.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And this is what I mean about catching up with the times. Like we have moved into this. We're not undoing the internet. Like it's not happening. So we have to accept and surrender that this is what it is and that there are benefits to it. Right. Like, again, I'm not against technology. I'm not against TV. I'm not against, the internet at all. It can be used for good, so there's a lot of beautiful, I mean, we couldn't do this without technology. Right. So that's fantastic. However, not having that external cave anymore, right? Like you said, we need to prioritize that internal cave, right? Creating that internal cave. It is critical to everything in humanity, right? Whether you want to be successful in work or as a parent or whatever you want, right? And that's what it always does. Your starts with me, right? I mean, that's what you're all about. And that is the point, is that internal focus and calm and love and courage and that space of surrender and acceptance. All of that brings us the power to then utilize all this stuff out there for good, right? But as long as we keep dropping down into the fear, anger, like all the guilt, the shame, all of that is, as that agitation, we're succumbing to being controlled by the outside world. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And I'm gonna, the last thing just to add is then, because we don't have that internal cave, that agitation gets most often turned outward, right? It's those people's fault. They're the bad guys. If I can just take them out or stop them or whatever, then this agitation will go away. But of course, it's not going to work that way. But
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, totally amazing. Thank you for bringing that up. That was so important.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.